percent from the previous price of $875. Interesting. $875 instead of just $875,000. And this one was reduced 2.9%. This one was reduced 1.9. This one was reduced 1.5. So their choice to raise that one, again, fairly interesting. However, we're looking at a totally different breed of animal here, right? This one's right on 45. In the Woodlands area, there's no, well, in Houston in general, there's no zoning. But in the Woodlands, your home can be a place of a business or your home can be your home. So you can just have a house and run a business from it.
In the Woodlands?
Mm-hmm. In quite a few neighborhoods of in Oak Ridge particularly, you can do that. There are some...
But Oak Ridge is not the Woodlands.
Well, this is true. It's the Woodlands area, I should say. Okay. So in this case, they've got some business, I would imagine, in that particular address, hence the almost $900,000. Okay. One thing I'm going to do, first off, I'm going to check them all. Even though I've not read through one of them, I'm going to check them all initially to go look at a very important thing, which is the real actual days on the market. If you scroll over to the far right, there's a field called DOM, days on market. All the days on market is how long it's had the current MLS number. Okay? Our friends on I-45 with their obviously kind of commercially property there, that property has had that MLS number and has been in MLS with it for 804 days. This home's been on the market with that MLS number for 118 days. This home's been there for 22, and so forth. When we talk about a CMA, when we talk about how long a home's really been on the market, there's a field called cumulative, CDOM. Sometimes the home's active, it expires, it gets relisted, it expires again, it gets relisted again. They switch agents because clearly it's always the agent's fault when a home doesn't sell, right? And relisted again. So all of that time, it was technically on the market, okay? But not reflected in this DOM. If you click this little lightning CMA, the quick like lightning.
Which is, in my opinion, your best friend. I love that button. I use it all the time.
It's math without having to do any. You know, it gives you statistical information. So I think it was the lady that popped in and popped out that had asked us for statistical information too. So thank you. Sorry, I didn't know. I know she had a name badge on, but I didn't focus on her name. So. The quick CMA will give me a table. My actives are first, my pendings are the next section, and so forth. So it breaks them apart by status, sold being the bottom of the table. And it's kind of cutting mine off a little. So let me finagle with it a little. If I click email, just to pretend I'm going to email it, I can open it where you can see all the columns. If you can see all your columns, then you don't have to go through this exercise. But if you'll notice now, I have a CDOM and DOM column. Okay, and up here at the top, this home that was on the market for 118 days actually has been on the market for 223. It's an extra 100 plus days in there. Okay, fortunately 804 is as hard as that guy's having to work. Okay. So this whole sold home, last known days on market was 72, but it really had to sit there 108 before it actually sold. Okay, so this is very important. The longer it stays on the market, who does that tend to benefit? The buyer, right? Seller ended up having to make concessions, lower list price, closing cost contributions, give away their children, their furniture, whatever. Okay, so focusing on this particular one as an example, 27222 Stark Lane. I'm just going to go back to my results in Fusion, and we're going to look at what's called the Property Archive Report, and that's going to show me the real full history of a property. Okay, so again, 27222 Stark was the one I wanted to focus on. If you hover on your chiclet, on the second row, usually always in the middle, that little piece of paper with a pencil icon is your Property Archive Report. P-A-R, the second R kills me. P-A-R-R, P-A-R, report, property archive report. What are they calling it? What are they doing? It's killing me. But it's the full history of the property. So your property archive report, once you open that, will explain the cumulative days a little better. Anytime you see a row that's highlighted in blue, it closed. That stops the ticker, okay? If the home is withdrawn, that is a pause, basically. The home is not actively being marketed, but you do still have a legally binding listing agreement. We just don't count the days. So if they put it in withdrawn for a week, those 7 days, a full week, those 7 days would not count either in days on market or cumulative, okay? When it comes back into one of the available active OP or PS, we count those days. So if we look down toward the bottom, the oldest date is at the bottom, the newest is at the top. Okay, so we're going pretty far back in time. This one's been in the MLS more than one time. 2004 to 2005, it was on the market, it expired. Then it was relisted in 07. But the gap between the date that it went off the market and came back on is 6 months or greater. If the gap between those two dates was 6 months or less than 6 months, then the ticker would have kept on ticking, okay? So we can kind of just disregard that. So that one's in 05 to 06, okay? Coming up again. Looking at our dates here, we've got some times that the gap's been too big for us to count, okay? So this property was on the market in June. It was withdrawn in October. It terminated rather, 9/23, was relisted 9/27. Again, my standing joke, clearly it was the agent's fault, so they switched agents, right? And expired in February. Then it was all the way until November of the next year. So again, we're looking at a gap. So we'll start counting here. This one was active. They reduced the price. It was withdrawn temporarily. It expired on that date, was relisted again, and this number and this number aren't 6 months or longer apart. So from this date through to that date is the 108, okay? Minus the days that it was in the withdrawal status and minus the 2 that it was not on the market. Make sense? Okay? Clear as mud. I know you ladies need to chat.
Just reschedule.
Oh, good.
Instead.
Good. Thank you.
Moving on back.
Oh, okay, another class. We have actually 3, an off-site class and then 2 in the office.
You're busy today.
Thank you, Marilyn.
You're very welcome. Feel free to call or email if you need some help. All right. So now that we know some of those have stayed on the market longer than others, we want to read through and find out more about them. Okay. I'm going to uncheck them, and then I'll only check the ones that I really know to be good comps. I generally start with the active properties. Again, I'm looking for shape, size, condition, the same kind of style of home, so as similar as possible to my subject. If you click your little magnifying glass, you can look at the pictures. You can see this one's also on a fairly large lot. I didn't use lot size when I searched, but I want to pay attention to that, right? We have a little over 11,000 square feet. We want homes similar to that. Again, you're always going to look at your remarks, either agent remarks and or public remarks. This one is some amazing agent remarks there, super helpful. Send me a letter. They did expand a bit for the consumer, so that's good. And then remember our defects and disclosures. So this one has treated defects. Again, I may not want to pick that one if my home is in good, sound, non-defective condition. I may not want to choose that as a comp because I have the luxury of 21 to choose from. I don't have to have this one. Okay.
Which could be like a termite or something, or a slab.
It's usually termiters, yeah. Those are the most common. Foundation issues or bugs, like I say. And the disclosure will disclose what it was, or it should.
Right.
By law, they have to tell you what it was, so. All right. So then going through the list, again, on to the next property. look at all your pictures, read your remarks, pick your apples to apples. Are you comfortable with what you would use as a means of picking a comp? Shape, size, condition, if it looks about the same kind of house? Okay. I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on that. Okay. If we're good. So let's say painstakingly, I've read through these, and I'm going to choose, for my example, I'm choosing all of the solds just to show you how to do the functionality of the CMA.
You might have missed it. Did you show Gwen how to check the select as you went through each individual record?
I did not. When you're looking at the full details, there is a select right here as well. So you can be reading it and just check or uncheck the box so you don't have to go back to the grid. Thank you, that's a lot more helpful. So you don't have to have your wife on the couch next to you going, write down this number. Yes, so you can select and unselect. Again, the way I did it was I unselected everything first and then I only check it once I know I like it. That's how my brain works. But you can leave them all selected and just simply uncheck the ones that you don't want to use as a comp. So, okay. Thank you. There's always at least 2 or 3 different ways to do everything in Fusion.
It's a little real world inside there.
Yes, yes. Because that's a hassle to have to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. All right, so let's say, again, hypothetically, these are amazing perfect comps. This one's a little large, but I'm going to use it anyway just because of the days on market example. Okay, do as I say, not as I do. Go within those parameters we discussed. Our quick CMA, again, just to revisit that and focus on some other columns, it does have our sales price per square foot.
So you have to be in what view to get that?
Just the grid view. So if you go back to results, click that results tab and it'll take you back to your grid. And then whichever you have checked is what it will show you statistics for, basically. Okay. And it's a very simple, I jokingly refer to it as the guy report. Short, sweet, to the point. Here are the numbers. That's all you need. No fluff, nothing. Math is math, right? You can put it in red letters or you can put it in blue letters. You can put it in green letters. Math is math. Okay. So again, mine just doesn't display properly, so excuse me while I have to go through these extra steps. But this sale price to list price ratio is what I call the golden nugget. Okay. So on the sold table, we have the DOM and CDOM, which we just discussed as being really important. Okay. Then we have the sales price per square foot, which is what I had talked about, but now here's the visual of where you can find that. So the average sold price per square foot's almost $73 a square foot. Right next to that is that SP/LP, sell price to list price ratio. They listed it and hoped to achieve 100% of their list price. How often does that happen? In this market, it's a little more likely, but not so often. This is telling me on average, based on the comps that I painstakingly chose, they were able to achieve 98% of the list price.
2 of them went over.
2 went over,
Yep.
and 1 didn't, on average.
Yep.
Okay? 2% swing. I have a 2% bubble, basically, 4% bubble, I can't go out of. If I go above this or below this, I've overpriced or undersold it for the market. Okay? So that 2% is going to come in very handy here in a moment. We're going to take the actual square footage of our property, multiply it times this 70, I'm going to round up, $73 a square foot, and that's going to give me my mid-suggested list price. And I'm so glad she picked up her phone because I can't do the math.
Yeah, I'm going to my calculator.
Yeah, that's what I say. That makes me feel so much better that nobody just popped the number right out. So he had 1,660 square feet times the 73. And again, I know you're doing a different property, so you'll have a little bit different numbers. My middle is 121, 180. I could go.
So I'll just use.
Your average will still be what you use. Average sales price per square foot of the one is still just as valid as if you had a couple. Your medium,
Oh, there we go.
minimum, maximum, and average. So if you go across to this middle,
It's the same.
You have a 1%, 100%, they sold at list on average, that house, you know, your average of 1. It sold at list price. So you have very little leeway. When you list this, you're going to have to basically put it right in, you know, right in that range, right at that price. We're going to finagle it a little bit, and I have used finagle a lot today. We're going to play with it a little. You can pad it with 1% or 0.5% and give yourself just a touch of room, because there are subjective things that come into play.
We paid $269 for it in 2003, and this comes to $475.
It is potentially possible. That would be good for him, right?
Yes, it certainly is possible.
And he might have been the only house back in '03. There may have been just 2 or 3 in the neighborhood so far, and now the whole neighborhood's built up around it. And like I say, good for him. He's more than doubled his investment. It only took 10 years to get there or so. Okay. So in my case, again, 121, 180, the $180 will make all the difference, I'm sure. I have a 2% swing, so I can go above this number by 2 and below that by 2, and that's my little safety net or bubble that I need to be in. Again, if I go too high or too low, both are bad, right, potentially. Okay. So going back to MLS, your only other option, again, because who doesn't love statistics, right? If you go to the Stats Pro, and again, I'm just randomly checking some properties to give you the different visuals here. This Stats Pro icon gives you just a little bit more robust report of that same information. This is, again, my joke is the girly version. It's got unicorns and rainbows. Same numbers, it's just going to look a little different. It's a little bit more formal presentation. If you've got somebody who's super into statistical pieces or stats in general, it's the same number, the same grid, the same tables, but it's a printable version. It's several pages, several different sections. Up here at the top you can see, you can print it out. Okay.
That one, right?
Mm-hmm. Your pop-up blocker is on, probably. Hold your control key down and then click at the same time. While you're holding that down, that sometimes will override your pop-up blocker. Oh, it's just, if you do this right now, what you'll want to do is choose always allow, but if you do it right now, it's going to refresh your whole page, so you'll lose what you have. So then before we leave today, let's do it, but let's not do it right now, okay? And I'll make sure that you know that. And then one of the other things that I really like about this, Frank, is it's the only, well, I mean, you can know too, I wasn't just telling Frank, but this is the only charter table I know of that has sale to original list price ratio. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Sale price to last known list price is what SPLP is. So that's kind of cool to know. You know, they sold within 2%, but they also had to reduce those prices in there somewhere, or raise the prices or whatever.
So the blue buttons on the right, are those additional reports?
Additional, same numbers laid out differently, that's right. So we get a market analysis based solely on the comps we chose,
Okay.
but we'll have, again, it's very suspenseful. Charts, graphs,
So if you
a little bit more aesthetically pleasing version of the report.
When you hit print earlier,
Mm-hmm.
would it just have printed what was the grid that was showing, or all of these charts and graphs that were available on the right?
If you click this little printer icon, you get these options, the current page or all of them.
Okay, excellent.
And you're basically
So you could go in
export.
with a 10-page fancy color report that looks like you were up all night if you wanted to.
That's right.
You know
That's
how
right.
I had to print mine yesterday, this one?
Hmm.
I had to email it to myself to get it to print.
That seems inconvenient.
It was very inconvenient.
You shouldn't have to do that, but that I don't know. Again, I didn't have a huge number of comps, but again, this could potentially be a very robust report with your average days on market and kind of a whole breakdown of the neighborhood and everything. The DOM chart, again, will show the days as well as your cumulative. So again, if you're explaining that to them, they want a lot more data to back it up as opposed to you just saying it. This illustrates that nicely. So now you got more than one new thing. I always say if I teach you at least one new thing each time, then I feel like I'm doing good. And we're almost done, I swear. We're almost out. We're going to be out of here on time even. All right, so those are your two statistical pieces. The quick CMA, again, math's math. There's absolutely nothing wrong with either one of them. Just know your target audience. Maybe one guy wants a whole bunch more to the report. When you're going to do the presentation to the seller, potential seller, you're going to probably want to use the CMA Wizard. The quick CMA, again, gives you all the basic math stuff, but it's just not all that fancy. Okay? So if you walk in the door to do a listing presentation and hand them one page, you can see how that would not make too much of an impression. If you click the CMA Wizard off to the far right there, even with one comp, one active, one pending, one sleeper, one of each status, you're probably looking at least 15 pages worth of a CMA, just based on the stock template that they have in there. You can pick and choose which pages and you can pare that down. It compares the properties at least 4 different ways, and you probably really don't need all 4. So it's got a table and then a columnar and a page per comp, and so there's some extra to that you may not need every time, particularly if you do have 5, 6, 8, 10 comps. That's going to be 40 pages worth of CMA, which can seem like overkill. All right, so the first step is all about you. It knows who you are based on your HAR profile, so it's got your name, your phone number, and all that. You can click the numbers on the left to go through the 8 steps of the wizard, or you can click the next step button in the lower right. Client information, you don't need to put anything but the property address, really. It's nice to put the client's name, phone number, address, and so forth if you wanted to do that.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
My screen when you were explaining something. What was your transition to the CMA Wizard? How did you move from where we were to this?
This little icon right here
Okay.
opens the wizard.
Is that wizard going to pick up your selected properties here?
It's only whatever you checked. Yep, it pulls them automatically into the wizard just by you having selected them. Okay, so though I can't see them right now, all of those 8 or however many I had ultimately selected are waiting.
Goodness, how did I not know?
So it's going to pull the primary photo only. It'll do a columnar comparison. Again, I'll have my subject on the left and each of my comps. So my actives first, then my pendings. So it's, again, the unicorns and rainbows, right? It's got the pictures and the other stuff. The math is the math. It's not going to change his suggested list price range. He's not going to make any more or less. But it looks as if I have put in a lot of work when I show up with 10 or 15 pages as opposed to here's this one page.
See,
right?
I've known how to do a CMA. You gave me some new tricks, but I didn't know how to put it into the wizard and print a fancy report.
Well, there you go. Now you do.
Now we do.
Aren't you glad I drove up today?
Diane,
He's going to be so smart.
Lynn and I are going to look like superstars.
So then I put the property address again. It'll map it for me. That's really the only, again, meaning it's the only thing I really need to put in there. It's nice, of course, if you say this is prepared for and put their name. The warm fuzzy goes a long way. It's thinking real hard, but eventually it'll map this property for me. And it's pulling from Bing, so it's mostly going to be accurate. There are rare occasions that those maps aren't up to date, but there'll be a little button right below here that says change. There we go. Change location. If it doesn't map it properly, you can physically move the pin. But we'll presume we don't ever have to worry about that. Then on into the next step. Because I said so, mostly is the best way to explain this. Put all those things on the right. The things on the left are what you could compare. The things on the right are what you are going to compare in your CMA. They've already pared this down to bedrooms, bathrooms, stories, pool, square footage, days on market, subdivision, all that stuff that we searched by in MLS. So you can put them all over on the right safely. If you don't want one, say fireplace is irrelevant. You can drag and drop and leave it over there, okay, or whatever you want to do. And you can drag and drop and rearrange them too if you want to work that hard at it. Next step. All about my subject property. If I happen to have a photo, maybe I drove by the house, maybe it was in MLS before and I borrowed it just for this one purpose. Maybe the guy emailed me one, whatever. If I don't have one, when I get to the printing step in step 8, I can just pick a cover sheet with no photo instead of it saying big space for photo that I don't have.
So, but if I borrow one, then I just
Save it to your hard drive and then hit the upload button.
You can right click, save as. If you wanted the Google Street View, I don't know if you know how to do a screenshot, but like if you pull the property up in Google, it'd be something like that. That's another option, just depending on how hard you want to work to get a picture or if one's available or not. Most every property now has an aerial view like that, at least, that you can kind of snag and pull through. And then you just type what you do know about the subject. We don't yet know its days and cumulative days because we haven't even gotten it into MLS yet, but we do know the subdivision is Oak Ridge, in this case North. I don't know why I can't type today, but okay. Number of stories, pool, again, just whatever basic core fields you do know about it. Each, the subject and each of your comps has this little notes box. My uncle's a real estate lawyer, so I kind of have some things embedded in my brain. Don't put anything in writing you would not want used later against you in a court of law, right? Always be careful, they can subpoena anything you ever wrote down, sticky notes and whatever, so opinions should be limited here. Maybe just your home has a half bath and the other ones don't, or something like that. If you don't want to put notes here, you don't have to. The next step reviews the comps we chose already, painstakingly, right? We read through them in real life way more than we did in class today. You can enter comps manually, so if you have new construction that did not run through MLS, for instance, or a FSBO for sale by owner, you have the information about those. You can put those in as comparables. If, for instance, I didn't like one of these up at the top, I can think, oh gosh, that's going to throw everything off. That's not the one I meant to pick. I can hit the little trash can, knock it out of the wizard. It refactors my math immediately. Also, I can come right here and put an MLS number of one I want to pull in. So if I think, oh gosh, I wanted the other one on Maplewood, not this one, just type the MLS number there, click add, pulls it in, refactors the math. Okay? So pretty quick and easy. You don't have to get out and start the whole process over. So next step, we're more than halfway done already. These are all my comps. So my subjects on the left, the information about the comparable property to the right, and I'm going to kind of fast forward to get through. You can see here this is an active, and I want to fast forward into our sold properties just to remind you about the adjustments that we kind of briefly mentioned. Remember when we were looking at the sold data, we talked about closing cost contributions and actual repairs. Excuse me, on this particular property it didn't have either, so 0, no adjustments to account for here. In that field, if it has a number, I'm not sure that any of mine do. Let's say hypothetically this one said 5,000. Okay, 5,000 closing cost dollars. Okay, so the home sold at 164.5, but they had to give away that $5,000 carrot. So the market value would actually be 5,000 less. So to actually complete the adjustment, it just says, hey, here's a number, you might want to think about it, and I have to manually tell it to adjust. So I would put minus.
I've got a repair allowance.
Perfect.
Below, so
Perfect.
I would do the same
So right
thing.
here you put minus whatever that number is. That's correct. So $50 or $100 or $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it might be. I had $50 in repairs on my house when I bought it. 50 whole dollars. Yes. Every penny counts, I guess. So in this particular example, I would do minus 5,000. You, of course, are doing minus a different number in the different field. But those two things are the main concrete facts we can adjust for. Your question earlier, what about a pool or not? We know probably it's going to add some value, but not necessarily in every market. And so those subjective things are a little difficult to account for. But these you can absolutely adjust for. And then if you feel brave enough, yes, you get some information you feel confident enough in to put dollar values here. Do y'all have any issues with them doing adjustments? Within reason.
Within reason.
Take it to Frank. Let him look it over first.
I've never coached making adjustments.
The only thing that I ever teach is those two concrete facts. You know, if they put a number in there, then great, we can use that. It really happened and we know it. Some agents don't put that number in there even. So.
Otherwise your uncle would caution.
Oh, my uncle would caution us all. That's correct. And really, did the $50 that came into play in my house, is that really going to make a difference in my CMAs later? But again, so now you can see the market value of the home would be $159,500. not 165 something.
Question,
Mhm.
okay, if, say, a bath, if there was an extra bath on the comp that this
Mhm.
subject doesn't have.
Right.
If I adjust that, will it put a figure in there?
It's going to do a dollar figure for you.
Oh, so it does do it for me.
Pros and cons, though. Let me re-answer your question. You would manually type a dollar figure, and it does the math for you to adjust for it down at the bottom, just like it did. It knocked 164.5 down to 159.9 because I subtracted $5,000 out. But I'd have to tell it, add $2,000 for a half bath, or take away $10,000 for a half bath, or whatever it was. I'd have to
So it
decide on a
doesn't
number.
calculate it for you.
It calculates it, but you have to know what you want it to calculate. Calculates the total, but you have to know the value.
And he would do it for you, you would have to.
You have to know the dollar value of a bath. That's right. We're finally,
This is the
am
judgment.
finally answering. Yeah. So if I put $10,000, it'll calculate it. But do I really know? Can I prove that that $10,000 was added because of that bathroom? Difficult to prove that. Okay. So be just really very careful if you do adjustments.
Now you're into appraiser territory in my mind.
Correct. And unfortunately or unfortunately, right, the appraisers do that. They do have the same difficulty you do. They're going into our system too. They're looking for the same comps. They have the same 3 houses to pick from, and they either are comfortable choosing it and doing it the right way and really logically coming up with the suggested list price, or they get confused or lost or have trouble, or they want to make it work.
To find 3 homes identical except for the one factor, and then extrapolate the value.
That's right.
It's tough.
Yeah. And then again, you get subjectivity. A buyer, this house has a half bath that this one did not. The half bath was right off, this is an actual MLS scenario, okay? The half bath was right off the dining room. Literally, you're sitting at the table, you can turn and go in that half bath. To me, I would not want that in my dining room. I wouldn't buy that house. That adds no value to me as a buyer.
Right.
Okay, I'm a single mom of an autistic teenage boy. I don't want to go home and skim a pool. A pool adds no value to me, okay? So you just have to, again, all of those things kind of come into play, and appraisers are supposed to eliminate any emotionality or any of those subjective kind of things, but we're all people. So sometimes those numbers vary for those reasons. So like I say, I tend to just stick with these concrete facts that pull from MLS if we've got those. Even though I made it up, I'm going to leave the adjustment there just so you can see how it plays out through the rest of the CMA. Okay. So on into step 7 of 8. Again, it's just a review of the comps we already painstakingly looked through in MLS. I can, again, see my adjustments here, price per square foot, adjusted price per square foot, and so forth. It's always going to do its math based on sold properties only, because that's what really counts, right? The seller can put their home on the market wherever they want, but it'll only sell at what the market can handle. This drop down is asking me if I want the computer to calculate the math for me, or if I would like to attempt to manually do math. I think we all know what I pick. Single value or suggested list price range, which is the way to go. Range. Yours is going to be a tiny range,
Yeah.
but you're still going to try to give them somewhat of a range, okay? I have it a little easier, almost as if I plan it that way when I teach the class and pick this particular subject. I had, remember, a 2% swing. My sale price to list price ratio for my comps was 98%, right? So I have a 2% play. So if I put 2 here, it then automatically gives me my low and my high suggested list price range based on this adjusted price per square foot of the solds that I chose, okay? In your case, you didn't have very much leeway at all. That one comp that you had sold at list price. So what I would do, just for the sake of being human and allowing for some of that subjectivity and buyer taste and things like that, I would put anywhere from a 0.5%, maybe to 1% in there for your scenario. That gives them a low and a high, but very little wiggle room. You know, if a buyer walks in and they hate the, no offense, it's just an example, if they hate the carpet. This is too dark, I would never live in this house. I can't stand it, won't do it. Well, you give them a low and a high, they can offer the lower of the two, but your seller is still getting just within dollars of what the home is valued for that market, okay? And then if they do offer some sort of carpet allowance, repair allowance, whatever it might be, they're not conceding too terribly much and going too far away from, again, the market value of their home. Here's another little wrinkle. Right now, inventory is fairly low. The second a property comes on the market, you can barely even get pictures in MLS before it sells, right? That was his conversation before class this morning. So, do I want to aim at average or do I want to aim at high? Okay, how long ago did your home sell, the comp that you chose? Do you remember? Somewhere in the 3 to 6 month range, I'm sure, but 90 days ago. Okay, so somewhere in the 90-day range. So let's say hypothetically it was only on the market for 3 days and then it sold. And it sold 6 weeks ago. Okay? So as soon as yours hits the market, you are going to have like a locust, right, on this listing because it's one of the few things available. So if I aim at what I could get on average, I might possibly have missed an opportunity to get a little more, right? There'll probably be a bidding more. There'll probably be multiple offers, a multiple offer situation. But we might be comfortable going up a little and starting a little high. This is a conversation you have to have with the seller. Say, I only have this one comp. It's all I can prove right now. But just knowing the market the way I do, notice how I said something without saying anything? Knowing the market the way I do, maybe we could aim a little higher if you're comfortable with that, okay?
Well, see, my problem is, my situation is, he's wanting a low figure because it's for tax purposes.
Oh, a tax valuation.
So I'm going to go at it as, you know, you really should sell it because look how much you're making, and you never go upstairs. He's, you know.
There's a whole half house you don't even use that you're paying taxes on, no matter how low the tax is, right? Perfect.
I'm going to try, but.
So yeah, stick with that 0.5% on yours then, if that's the goal there. The little bit of the Marilyn trick again that I would use if I wanted to aim high.